Welcome back, Lelanders, to a new episode today about ancient mysteries. Now, this is a presentation I've been hoping to make for a few years, and I always tend to find out a little bit more and more information and try to rebook it, but I figured what I do today is just do an informal presentation about all the information I've collected, and maybe in the future we'll do a more properly edited version. So for anyone's wondering what we'll be covering on today's show, we got Ahura Mazda and the secret meaning to Freemasonry, and I believe that it connects to the celestial equator. So we're going to cover some of the information on that, and we'll show how the celestial equator actually could relate to the Ahura Mazda. So if anyone hasn't seen this book before, it's actually from Albert Pike. He was one of the first guys to write a lot of the major books about Freemasonry. And I think as Freemasonry has evolved over the years, they've definitely steered clear of Albert Pike because he has a bit of a controversial history or past. And yeah, a lot of this stuff, even from the old days, how people used to think, is very controversial. No, and in this book, I guess we should say where it's from, because I know Albert Pike has a lot of different books, and people often get them confused. I did. Alright, so this article was extracted from the book Lectures on Masonic Symbolism, and a second lecture on symbolism, or the Omkara, and other ineffable words. So yeah, it's by Kessinger Publishing. So I guess right off the beginning, a lot of times people will debate who and what is Ahura Mazda, because it says right on the book from Albert Pike that it's the secret meaning to Freemasonry. So I've actually met a few Zoroastrians and people from Iran, and if anyone's not familiar with Zoroastrianism, it's like the other half of Hinduism. I know some people talk about Hinduism as being the oldest possible religion in the world, but they often leave out the fact that one of the gods from Zoroastrianism, like Ahura Mazda, they're often interchangeable between Hinduism and vice versa, because one god in one religion is a demon in the other religion, and then vice versa, back and forth. So I think today what we'll be doing too is going over a lot of the different slides that I got from museums. We'll cover where this image is from and what it could possibly mean. I know when it comes to the ancient Sumerian tablets, people have looked at these little spheres in the corners and figured them to be planets. I know that's one of the theories with, Zachariah Sitchin. He believed that they were showing the planets and included the 10th planet. So it's an interesting theory. I've actually considered that one for most of my life. It's only recently that I've started to think that these 7 dots that are showing next to the winged disc symbol is actually part of the Alpha to Omega legend, or A to Z, or Aleph to Omega. So if anyone hasn't heard of that legend before, to summarize, it's when you look up into the night sky, you'll see a whole bunch of stars connecting to Orion's belt. On one side of the constellation, you'll end up with 7 sisters, or the Pleiades star system, which the ancients believed was heaven or the home of the immortals. And on the other end, it reaches all the way out to Canis Minor and Major, where the dog guides the souls in the afterlife. So some people have probably heard of Anubis, and that's what his main goal was as well. So yeah, we're going to be covering that. Oh yeah. Oh, some people have already joined into the chat on Adept Initiates. So yeah, I'm also sharing this as a test to see if it works on Adept Initiates. If anyone on the page wants to put comments or questions in the chat, it's fine. But we also have call-in abilities. So if you want to call in on Discord, Skype, or what was the other? Discord, Skype. Oh yeah, and Facebook Messenger. Apparently Facebook Messenger is also working, but I haven't tested that one yet. So I think what we'll do is we'll start off with some of the call-in stuff. So if you want to get a hold of me on Skype, just put it in the chat somewhere, maybe on the YouTube chat or Facebook, and yeah, we'll connect on Skype. But I think Discord is probably the easiest way. Or I guess probably the easiest way is just to leave the chats, and I'll try to just read them and answer them. All right, so far, ooh. All right, so SZ has a comment, money, 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 can't say the rest, parents be here, may souls find the truth. Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of people are always trying to find the truth. What is the real secret meaning of Freemasonry? And I find it interesting that when you talk to Freemasons, none of them really know either, right? I think that's one of the coolest secrets of Freemasonry. A lot of cases, when you get to the highest ranks, you're still up to yourself to try to figure out what it is. I know some people will claim they know what it is, but maybe they're just not allowed to tell you, or... No, because a lot of times I'll be like discussing with people claiming to be Freemasons, and they'll go on and say stuff like they know that I'm wrong, but they can't say why. So it's kind of interesting. So anyways, who knows? Maybe the Freemasons do know and they're not saying, but we'll cover what I think it is for today. No, and to be fair, I've had like a million different theories about what the winged disc and Ahura Mazda actually means, and this just is my latest theory. Who knows? Maybe next year we'll have another one. So when I was at the convention meeting, Iranians and Zoroastrians, I had some pictures of the winged disc above me on my table. And the Iranians are like, oh, the winged disc, that's really cool. That's like our nation's like symbol, heritage and stuff. But I asked the Iranians most times, like, hey, are you actually a Zoroastrian, or do you just follow the symbol? So in a lot of cases, it turned out the Iranians aren't actually still Zoroastrians. It's just the symbol that they wear to show that they're from Iran. And the other case of what Ahura Mazda is actually this winged disc symbol above me. That's Ahura Mazda. So when we say that the secret meaning of Freemasonry is Ahura Mazda, it's actually referring to this, that the winged disc symbol is the Freemason's secret. Now, just reading through this book by Albert Pike, this is only like a few pages. It's not really like a whole big textbook, but it highlights some of the stuff like the Vedic text, the Avesta. So Vedic text people have heard of as like the Hindu text part of it, but the Zen Avesta is actually the Zoroastrians version. And sadly, I don't know if it's really true, but the Zoroastrians have apparently lost the Avesta. So no one even has the book anymore, but they do have a few phrases left from it that were managed to be saved. Now, and this book also talks about light beings. I think modern day Freemasonry went heavy into the light being stuff, but they sort of discarded where it came from, or I could be wrong about that. If anyone wants to put it in the chat, just let me know. Alright, so maybe we'll start off with some little bit more slides, see if we can find some information to share. I'm not sure which to share first, so we'll just play it by ear and see what we find. Alright, so let's see. I guess maybe we'll start with who wants to see what first. Maybe we'll go to where the biggest breakthrough of me figuring out what the actual meaning of Ahura Mazda or the winged disc is. And a big shout out and thanks to the First Nations community. They were the ones here in Canada that managed to share what it means. They had it at the museum in Ottawa. So Carrie Love, that actually helped contribute to Adept Initiates in the past, I don't know, possibly in the future, she was debating with me about what the meaning of this circle around Orion, you see on the very far right, or here it is, there, your left, depending, oh yeah, and if the images are mirrored, sorry, I think Facebook mirrors images from the screen, so I'll try to read everything just in case people are having difficulty. And if anyone's just listening to the audio version. So basically this guy in the center and the three belts, or the three stars on his belt, is the First Nations name for Orion. They called him a Wintermaker. I know there's another name I can't pronounce. And I noticed when it comes to the First Nations belief, they're nice enough to actually draw the circle around the Orion belt man. So if anyone's already noticing the coincidence here, is we have this wing disc, like a disc around the wing. So already we're starting to say, hey, maybe this is something similar to Ahura Mazda, right? So let's try to figure out, is this actually related to Ahura Mazda? So when one arm of this outreaches, like I mentioned before, it reaches to the Palladian star system or heaven, the home of the immortals, and it's next to an ox or the Aleph, the part from Alpha to Omega. So that's where we have the sacrifice traditions. Anyone who's familiar with the Bible, Jesus was actually, his main goal for being sacrificed on the cross was to make sure that pagans or any other culture didn't need to do the sacrifice ritual anymore in order to reach the seven sisters or the seventh heaven. So, not to be too offensive, but it's a pretty big debate if anyone really is able to reach the seven sisters or the home of the immortals, because apparently you had to transform your body into pure energy or light before you could reach it. So who knows, maybe when Jesus did that, then there was like a big change so that you didn't need to become an immortal light being before you could travel there. Now, and if anyone happens to know the meaning of the glove or the black hand, I've actually seen this at different museums before from other cultures, even in Africa, I believe. So if anyone knows the meaning of that hand, that'd be great. I am planning a trip to the Ottawa Museum so I can read more of it actually from the museum itself. Maybe find out the meaning of this thing above the wing disc as well. But it's kind of neat that they also show the one arm outstretching, holding this giant serpent, right? So let's look at some more of the symbology. And sorry if I don't manage to give, referrals or not referrals. Yeah, references to all the images I'm using, because I'm going to be using crap loads. So if anyone wants the image referral mentioned, just tell me and I'll put it in the chat and in the comments section. Maybe I'll get around to doing them all, but yeah, there's probably going to be quite a few. No, I'll do my best to give all of them. A lot of the images I didn't create, but some I did. So we'll try to get the names out for everyone who made this one. So anyways, when me and Carrie Love were debating why there was a ring around this constellation, I thought it meant because of the North Star. Let's see if we have it. The North Star spinning. If anyone hasn't noticed, like when you look up at the North Star or the Pole Star, all the other stars spin around it, sort of like in a circle. So it looks like the entire sky spins except for that one center point. Well, I guess it's still spinning, but everything spins around it, right? And I don't think that there is a... here it is, Polaris. Oh, no, that's a better one. This image actually shows what I'm talking about. So this one's from Wikipedia, a 45-minute exposure of stars, Polaris, taken from Germany, September of 2001. So we'll share the image here. So this is where I thought that ring around the constellation was referring to, the spin, right? How everything's in a circle. But then I started to realize just recently that there's more than one circle spinning. It's sort of like wheels within wheels within wheels. We'll cover more of that in a minute. I know anyone who's familiar with Ezekiel has heard that term before. Okay, so let's see, the more detailed section, we'll try to give all the references here. There it is there. I'll make it a little bit bigger so we can all see it, even viewers on cell phones. Alright, so there's the source. Oh, it's public domain. So thanks a lot, man, for releasing that to public domain. Alright, so that's what I was originally saying, that I thought the red ring around this wing disc was. But Carrie was very intelligent and managed to point out to me, and it took me a while to realize what she was saying, is that this star system isn't close enough to Polaris for stars to spin around it, right? Because it's really only Polaris, the North Star, that things spin around. So I was like scratching my head like, oh crap, if it isn't the North Star spinning, what the hell is this ring representing? So that's when I realized that it's the celestial equator. Now, if anyone hasn't heard of the celestial equator before, you're not alone. I hadn't heard of it either. I know a lot of times people, like even podcast guests, have been trying to teach me about different ancient star patterns and what they all mean. But to be honest, it's usually in one ear and out the other, right? For me in my life, I notice that when something is like a really far off topic, like intense knowledge, it really doesn't stick unless I can find some way to apply it to my normal life, like use it every day sort of thing. Sort of like when I went to Canadian schools and learned French class. I actually skipped it a lot and didn't concentrate because it never really applied to my life. I lived in a province where no one speaks French, or very rarely. So yeah, I was like, man, I don't even need to learn French. But then as I got older and started to travel to Montreal and Quebec, I was like, oh man, there's so many beautiful women here that I wish I could communicate with. So in hindsight, I really should have paid more attention. But that's really just how life is, right? Until something really affects you directly, it's hard for it to stick, or at least it is for me. If anyone else has that, you can put it in the chat if it happens to you. So what I started to realize is that there's more wheels in spinning in the sky than just the Polaris North Star. If anyone's ever thought about gravity and how like we're always moving in space, like we're in a wheel or an orbital pattern around the sun, and then the sun's orbital pattern goes around the Milky Way. And then all the Milky Way and those are also orbiting a larger system expansion of like the entire universe moving apart from the Big Bang. So you sort of get a spin within a spin within a spin. So you can start to see we're getting this wheels within wheels within wheels. So here I didn't ever notice is that the celestial equator, yeah, let's read it from here because I'm even still a little bit hazy on this. So that's the one reason I wanted to do this presentation, is I realized that a lot of these times that I'm researching this, I end up forgetting a few weeks later. So I really got to record this so that if I forget, I can just watch it again. All right, so this is what they call stellar precession. Is that the one? No, that is not. Wrong slide. Let's see. Here it is, the celestial equator. Yeah, so this is where the image is from that I added to that slide. It's the elliptical plane. So the image shows the relationship between Earth's axial tilt, the rotation axis, and orbital plane. Let's get a bit of a look here. Make sure that we're allowed to see this. Yeah, it's Creative Commons. You're allowed to share, distribute. All right, so there's who did it. We'll give the reference to, even if it is public domain. All right, so there we go. And some people looking at this celestial equator thing, yeah, let's summarize what it actually means. So when you got that extra ring that they're showing here on the planet for the celestial equator, it's this ring also. Because how did I figure it out? Oh yeah, that was it. If you go to the list, there's a list. Oh, there it is. So if you look at the list of the celestial equator and all the different star systems it goes through, let's make it bigger. We start to see the same constellations that I was referring to in that A to Z legend. Like here we have the Canis Minor, we have Orion, Orion's belt, Taurus like the bull or the Aleph that was supposed to be sacrificed for the ancient ritual. Now if anyone wants a little or background history about sacrifice, we can't talk about it on YouTube too much, but I don't know, we had a guest on actually who was at Art Olivier, and he talked about sacrifice a lot on his show. He was one of the politicians that ran against Arnold Schwarzenegger to become governor of California. So I was very fortunate to have him on the show and fill me in a lot about the sacrifice traditions. But anyways, the sacrifice tradition, if you even check back all the way to, was it Cain and Abel, the very first sacrifice, is, yeah, it was a big debate whether or not you could sacrifice plants or meat. And yeah, eventually everyone probably heard how that ended. Is it turned out meat was the only sacrifice that was appeasing the gods, and the plants didn't. So the two brothers got jealous of each other. One killed the other because the sacrifice didn't work for them, or it did. vice versa. So yeah, that's basically what we're getting at, is the ancients believe that if you wanted to make it to the seventh heaven or communicate with the immortals, is they would only do it if someone was pure of heart or like had no sin. Basically like a sort of like a virus protection for the internet. You have to have the, what is it, Norton or McAfee. A big shout out to John McAfee's history. Like, I'm really sad how he ended up dying. I wasn't always a big fan of him, but man, some things he did good and did really good. So anyways, yeah, so if the ancient fail-safe to protect the wrong people from getting to the home of the immortals is they had to have no sin. So obviously, how is any mortal going to have no sin, right? It's almost impossible, unless you died the first day you were born, not to sin, right? So what the people realized, it's literally written in the stars. We'll bring that slide back up. Where is that slide? Ah, there it is. So what the immortal or the humans on Earth realized, or the gods told them, is when you look up to the stars, the instructions on how to reach the seventh heaven, like to beat the antivirus, is actually written right in the sky above us. It's the Alf, the sacrifice of the horned beast, right? So I don't know, different cultures, you've probably noticed, always put a lot of emphasis on the horned beasts, either bulls, oxes, or Alfs. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. I don't even know if I've ever heard someone say Aleph out loud. Or Alf. Yeah, Alf, like from the TV show. So anyways, yeah, not to be telling people to do sacrifice. Apparently Jesus was able to change that so we wouldn't need to sacrifice anymore. So don't even get any weird ideas. But anyways, so yeah, that's what we got as the Aleph. And coming to the seventh heaven is to reach that location, to become an immortal light being. You had to get rid of your sin, and the only way was the sacrifice. Now we'll get into a little bit of the sad part. Some people are obviously thinking, well, if this is going to work for all the humans on the earth, everyone doesn't have oxes, right? Depending where you live. So there was other cultures that found obviously other substitutes, and we'll get into that. God, I don't want to get into it, but we have to. Or no one will know what the heck we're talking about. So let's go to, I got a folder here called A to Z, or the Aleph to Wing Disk folder. And I've got some more information about it in here. So the Egyptians, you can see here that when they showed the arms reaching from Orion to go all the way to the seventh heaven, they also put the ox there. So this idea that the ox being connected to the arm and everything. Oh, and yeah, you also notice that he has the bent knee. And if anyone hadn't noticed, well, I guess it was a few years ago now, but there was that big movement with different cultures doing the kneeling. So yeah, this kneeling or genuflecting tradition, it dates back all the way to this Alpha Omega legend. So I'll say, well, what's the big deal with the bent knee? So the bent knee is supposed to represent Orion and how he has his knee bent, right? You can even see, like, compare the two, they're almost identical patterns, right? So I always wondered why he was sitting in such an awkward position on this chair. Like, I don't know if anyone's ever sat like that, but that doesn't look like very comfortable, right? Who knows, maybe it is. It's like some fancy yoga and you just got to get used to it. But yeah, so that's what we got for that. Oh yeah, and above King Tut's chair. Oh yeah, this is from a National Geographic book that I've got on my shelf. And it was the first time I noticed that what is it, cultural similarities between the Egyptians and, was it Lord Pakal of, is that the Aztecs or the Mayans? I'm not sure. If anyone wants to put it in the chat, I always get those mixed up. So yeah, now we're already starting to get more information that confirms this, right? Like, we got the winged disc symbol, we got the serpents, just like the First Nations picture it showed, right? Where is it? So there it is. We got the horned beast, we got the serpent, and the seventh heaven. Oh, and I think the First Nations people even showed his knee bent, but you can't see it because it's underneath that the black glove. Oh, and the rabbit at the bottom. Yeah, hopefully we'll have time to cover that. I don't want to get this into like a 4-hour presentation, so who knows? Maybe we'll cover that on an Easter special. Alright, so that's what we got so far with that one. We'll go back. So that's the Egyptian one. So now if anyone's wondering, like, why the hell is King Tut's chair so weird like that? It's depicting the Orion Man. Well, one of my theories for it. If anyone else has other theories, go right ahead. I'm always interested in other theories, so I'm not going to shun you just because you don't disagree, or because you disagree with me. Alright, so here's another depiction of the Winter Maker. I think this one could be from the Ojibwe, and the other one was from another culture. Alright, so this one, oh, this is one of my favorite ones, and scary at the same time. If anyone's familiar with Santeria, this picture is actually one that I took from the museum in Toronto, called the Royal Ontario Museum. And I don't know if it was gifted. Hopefully they didn't steal it from anyone, but yeah, this is one of the old figurines from Santeria. And if anyone hasn't heard of Santeria, I think it's like a Caribbean type version of Christianity, or like some sort of biblical tradition mixed with pagan traditions. So it's like a lot more pagan than your average Catholic church will admit they are. They're more open to the idea that paganism is very interconnected with modern religions. So as you can see here in Santeria, it's the same sacrifice ritual they're depicting. But instead of the ox, what did they have? They were using people, sadly. Now, if anyone hasn't heard, Santeria is the only denomination of like Catholics or biblical followers that still practice sacrifice. They're the last ones. So I don't know if like that's because they don't believe that Jesus' resurrection actually worked, or maybe they just noticed that the sacrifice tradition hadn't changed, and yeah, they're still able to get some sort of a knowledge from doing this. So yeah, that's the one for Santeria. Alright, so as we were covering at the beginning of the show, that the arms, oh yeah, we didn't even cover that. So when me and Carrie were talking about that thing spinning, I started to realize that the spinning of that Orion Man, or the circle around him, they often showed it with multiple arms, just to show that it could spin, like making a circle. So that's where you start to get why these ancient gods always have more than one arm, or more than two arms. And not to make fun of it, but I think, yeah, most people have two arms. Yeah, occasionally three or one, but... Alright, so we covered that one, we covered that one. The spinning arms, yeah, that looks right. Alright, so let's get back. Let's get back to the main image, the A to Z legends. So yeah, and if you get into the Vedic stuff, you'll find out that, yeah, where do I got it? There's actually some sacrifice traditions within that too. I don't know if Vedic text talks about it, or maybe people don't mention it as often. Oh yeah, and then the lotus flower, the hallucinogenics. I don't know, one day I was very lucky that I was talking to a Zoroastrian elder who's like a priest. I don't know, I can't remember what they call their priest. Maybe it's priest. But he was telling me that I was asking him a lot of questions. And he said, yeah, I've never had someone ask like so many in-depth questions. He's like, wow, like you're really into this? Like, I think he said he had decades of experience teaching and no one had asked him the same questions. So he's like, because you asked me so many interesting questions, I'll actually tell you something we're not usually telling everyone, is that the Zoroastrians, when it came to like their winged disc religion, it actually had a connection to hallucinogenic plants. So I was like asking, like, how did all of these shamans communicate with the Anunnaki gods from like Zoroastrian times? And he's like, it was the shamanic plants. And what he also told me is that the shamanic plants that they used are no longer found, or no one knows what they were. So I was even wondering, like, sometimes it isn't always plants. Isn't there always like sometimes a hallucinogenic fish as well? So maybe that's a reference to why some of the ancient fish gods were always shown, because of that hallucinogenic fish. Could be. Alright, so I think we're skipping a little bit all over the place. I'll try to keep this a little better on track. Where's the A to Z legend slide? Ah, here it is. Alright, so we covered a little bit of the Vedic, the Santeria, the Egyptians, the Chinese. Now, the Chinese records, I'm getting a little bit more information about them from day to day, because actually my brother's boyfriend is from China and he grew up there, and he's a little bit into the ancient mystery stuff. He even took my brother on a tour to see pyramids in China that most people have never even seen pictures or heard of. Like, I know there's the ones where you see pyramids like buried in farmers' fields and stuff, but that's not the only ones China has. China actually also has pyramids out in the desert that aren't buried. Like, they're actually still standing. So yeah, my brother went to China and showed me a lot of pictures from his trip. Actually, he went to China right at the end of 2019, and he got really sick there and came back, but that was before testing. And I think he'll be one of the last tourists to be able to travel to China to see these ancient sites, because I don't know if anyone's talked to people from China, but China's been very strict, not about who's allowed in and out of the country because of the pandemic, but they just made it really expensive. So instead of doing the lockdowns and mandates to not let people in and out, they just jacked up the price. So only the super rich can travel back and forth out of China. I don't know how, maybe that's changed since, but that's the last I heard from my family. So yeah, hopefully in the future we'll get more information how it connects to China, but so far I was able to take one of the glyphs that related to it and put it next to it, and I was like, holy crap, it actually does look very similar, like the outstretched arms. So anyways, that might be a bit of a stretch for some people, but we'll get on to some more symbols, like the one here on the right. That's from the cave in Bulgaria. I forget the name of it, but it's near a town called Sumer, and no one knows how old or the name of that town really is. And there is a whole conference in Varna that happens like in Bulgaria each year, where they debate whether or not the Bulgarians brought this culture all the way out of Iran. So yeah, it's the same thing when we talk about like the Vedic text and how they got their stuff from Iran, debatably. And yeah, so that's what the Bulgarians also debate. And there's the symbology they had in the cave. This one I think is from is that one an Eastern European? I think either Russia or Lithuania, something like that. Or Serbian, maybe? Oh, I can't remember. If anyone knows the image for this one, I'll have to look up the source for it again, I forget. But yeah, they've got a very similar symbology there, holding the serpents, the winged disc at the top, and it's shaped like a person. So we covered that one. Oh yeah, and then sadly we got the big sacrifice traditions in South America or Mexico, where we got they didn't use the elf, they were still using people. So that was the main thing about this legend, is the god set it up so that we didn't have to sacrifice other people to communicate with them. But some people didn't and stuck with the old way of actually sacrificing people. And oddly enough, when it comes to this celestial equator, well, we'll connect exactly why these two things connected. Like the celestial equator and why the certain cultures were sacrificing people in specific locations as well. It wasn't just random spots that they would do the sacrifice. It's kind of a bit scary, but we'll cover that a little. Maybe we should jump to that right now. Yeah, and then we got, who is this, Viracocha, I believe. This is probably also from Wikipedia, if anyone wants to check out Viracocha. So anyways, the DNA from this area, the Viracocha remains that they find, or culture stuff, actually happens to match some parts of the Caspian Sea. So I found that very interesting as well, because people are always trying to find like the connection between the ancient cultures, how the Egyptians and maybe the South Americans were actually trading a long time before Europeans arrived. Yeah, and then there's the cocaine mummies, if anyone's ever heard of that. I think William Shatner did a great show on those. Alright, so we'll close this one for now. I think we covered everything, except for how this celestial equator connects to the sacrifice. So if anyone's into ley lines and Perry Reese maps and all that sort of stuff, we're going to dip a little bit how this connects to that. And I know it might sound like a really strange connection, right? Like, how the heck is the freaking these two things really going to connect, right? Like, so what it always reminds me of is Da Vinci. And Da Vinci's famous saying was that if you learn how to see how all things connect. So yeah, paraphrase it. I think he has a similar saying to that. Oh yeah, and I was just going to show here, isn't it weird that the Sumerian tablets basically had the same A to Z legend, where they got the alf that was for the sacrificing. They show one end of the tradition was to reach the 7 stars or the 7 sisters, the home of the immortal gods. And then the anthropomorphic features, where they show like the god is like half animal. Sometimes they'll show him as like half fish. So that's where I was thinking the fish and the possible Zoroastrian hallucinogens connects. Yeah, like I don't know, like who was it I was listening to? Michael Cremo. He was doing a presentation with Art Bell, I think, on Coast to Coast. And Art Bell, credit to him, he was asking Michael Cremo, he's like, we got all these ancient cultures and all this stuff like way in the past. He's like, what was their religion? And then Michael Cremo, I don't know if he was allowed to say or he didn't say, but he sort of totally dodged the question, right? So I was thinking maybe he didn't know, or maybe he couldn't say because it's the secret meaning to Freemasonry. So it'd be sort of an awkward situation, right? Like you're doing an interview on live radio and they ask you a question that you're not allowed to answer, even though you know the answer, or he might not. Oh, and the other thing on this tablet, you notice how when they're showing the celestial equator, they start showing like wheels within wheels within wheels, or circles around circles around circles. So if I had to guess the Ezekiel wheel story, maybe we should get to that quick. Where is it? Ezekiel's wheel. Thought I had it here. Alright, well, until I find the Ezekiel wheel story, we'll cover this one, the cylinder seals. Where this actual cylinder seal picture is from. I should tell everyone in case they don't have time to watch the rest. So this article, let's see where it's from. Ruminant cylinder seals and their significance. Great article. If anyone wants to give a shout or comment to the guy who wrote this, I think he did a good job. Who is it by? Dr. Joshua J. Mark, professor of philosophy. So yeah, that's where I got this image from. I think I actually traced it back to the actual museum picture, but we'll say it's from there for now. Alright, so he goes on about how cylinder seals and these tablets are great. What came first, that or that? The manufacturing process, styles. So you notice when it comes to these, they're always showing the horned beasts, right? And the stars above. Like, why would they be so obsessed with that unless it was to do with the ritual of A to Z, right? So there's that one, use of cylinder seals. Oh, here's another one. Remember how we were talking about the multiple arms? Yeah, the cylinder seals were into showing that's what demonic stuff was also. And to be fair, these multiple armed creatures, in some cultures they're demons, and in the other cultures they're angels. The same creature. I think that was, yeah, what was it, the picture I got from the museum. Let's show that a little. I like showing my museum pictures because at least it's a picture I took, and I don't want to always be copying other people's stuff. Alright, so we got the raw museum, there it is. And oh yeah, here we're getting into the cylinder seals. Alright, so if anyone hasn't noticed, like tablets are pretty cool, like Sumerian tablets. But when it comes to the second best, I think the, what is it, cylinder seal, or not cylinder seal, these little stamps, they're really wild too. I forget the name of them. If anyone remembers the name, they can put it in the chat. I think I got the wrong. There it is, Toronto March. Now, I went to the museum a few times, so I often get the images mixed up from which trip I took. Oh yeah, and if anyone was thinking I was joking about the Asian pyramids and stuff, we can see like the ancient stone builders even have some things. In what part of this world was it? Here it is. Is this one Korea or Japan? I forget. Yeah, there's like another wheel within wheels within wheels. That's one of the artifacts they found near it. How come there it is. Ah, here we go. National, oh yeah, it is from Korea. So obviously Korea and China aren't the same, but I'm just using that as an example of this type of thing happening in Asia as well. It's not really exclusive to any region in the world. Even in North America, like one of the Stonehenges that I like to research up north in Canada, it's arguably older than any stacked stone structure ever. So like 10,000 years. Whoops, didn't mean to close that. Prehistoric periods, yeah. Alright, so I think we're good for that. We covered that. Next thing what we'll do, just get the folder of images again. There it is. No, oh yeah, that's what it was, the Scarab collection. I think that's what it's called. Let's go down to it. We'll get back to the winged disc demons and stuff. So, some people argue a lot about what the religion was of the Phoenicians. Some people will be like, oh, the Phoenicians had no religion connections to Egypt or anything, but for God's sakes, man, what are the Phoenician gems? Are these gems? What did they call those again? If anyone remembers the name. I was thinking it was not gem, but something else. Oh, it was actually, yeah, J.J. Ainsworth was the one that started to show me that a lot of these best things aren't always on the cylinder seals. They're also on these little gems that you can press in. So anyways, it shows that creatures that, like biblical times, might call an angel, like with the 4 wings. Other cultures called them the demons. So here's another example, the anthropomorphic beings, similar to the Sphinx. Here's another one, the 4-winged demons. So what you could say is the Zoroastrians might call him a demon, and the Vedic or the Hindu text would say the opposite, he'd be an angel. Alright, so personally I believe that the Phoenicians were very well interconnected to this A to Z legend stuff and the celestial equator. Like really all the ancient people, what did they all have in common is they're really into the stars, right? So if anyone else is trying to work to solve these mysteries, if you want to get it even better than I do, try to focus on the stars, right? The stars is the key, I believe anyway. Alright, so big shout out to him and sharing this article on the internet. That was great. Some great academic research here. And obviously he probably doesn't agree with much of what I say. Who knows? I haven't actually met the guy who wrote this. Alright, so that's good for now. We'll minimize that one in case we need it later. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to check the Adept Initiates page, make sure we don't have any more questions. Yeah, that's a great point that Stephen Bayer makes. He says the Polaris would not have been the pole star at that time. And that's very true. And that's actually where we get into how this connects to Perry Reese's maps. Because I started to notice something. I was like, Perry Reese's maps were all aligned to Polaris or the pole star being a different spot. So I was like, why is it a different spot? And then I started to realize that it's not the land moving, like shifting and earthquakes and stuff, but it was actually the location of the pole star. It doesn't always stay the same. It normally stays the same for like in a short lifespan. If you're looking at it, you'll never see it change. But over thousands of years, it actually does move. So we'll check out, yeah, thanks for that, Stephen, or Stefan. Sorry, I'm very bad at pronouncing names. I can't even pronounce my own name right half the time. Alright, so let's bring up what he was pointing out. I'm glad he mentioned that because I almost forgot. So that was the stellar precession page. So as the poles eventually change, the North Star, different stars will become the North Star. Yeah, here it even says that for a long time the people weren't sure the ancients knew about it, but now they believe they did. Let's make it bigger. I'll see if I can find it. There was another page that I had that showed the different locations for the pole star. So I'll put pole star locations in the past. Let's see if that's the one. Now we're getting into the Phoenicians again. Let's check that out. Ah, here it is. Over the course of 26,000 years, let's make it a little bigger, if we can. Right, so over the course of 26,000 years, the axial precession cycle, or the North Star, changes. So starting with the current stars will be near the north. North Star existence cycle, average brightness, and okay. Ah, so here we have the different stars that will become the pole star. Now I was thinking, didn't someone say, I could be getting it mixed up, oh, Alpha Draconis. So that's what I was thinking, like in the old, or the research I did on the Stonehenge up north, I believe that it was a representation of Draco. Because when I got there, we'll have another podcast, or not podcast, travel vlog, where I'll release the video showing it in VR, so you can actually go there and see what it looks like yourself, virtually. But anyways, yeah, this Stonehenge up north was very similar to the Draconis system. So I was like, why were they so obsessed with Draconis? And then I started to think about it. I was like, wait a minute, like Draconis, that's like the north area, and up north it's visible, so maybe that's why. But then I was wondering too, now with this different celestial equator or North Star, is that it changed over time, right? So maybe that one dates back all the way to when that was there. Yeah, so 3000 BC. If they would have built that Stonehenge around the 3000 BC time, shit, how long is that? 3000 BC. Ah, here it is, Draconis, Lakota Draconis, Beta Ursa. Now I was thinking, wasn't Leo part of it? Like the lion? Maybe not. I'm probably getting that wrong. Oh yeah, I remember what the Leo thing was from. Oh shit, clicked the wrong icon. Hopefully that doesn't do anything bad. Oh, I think it did. Sorry, one sec, I'll have to close this. Oh, Logi, what are you doing to us? Oh, there we go. Yeah, I closed it. Alright, so we got the pole star part. Yeah, thanks again to the viewer for that question, or comment. That was amazing. I don't think I would have remembered to mention that unless he did. Alright, so I guess we kind of covered like what I was talking about, how like Perry Reese might have known about the celestial equator when he was making his maps. So I'll show you why. And if I forgot anything else, we'll try to come back to it. Yeah, make sure the viewers, if I skipped a part and wanted to hear more, don't forget or don't feel bad about reminding me. I've got a terrible memory, so I forget things like 2 seconds ago. No, I am doing Sober October this month, so it's kind of helping me concentrate a little bit more, but yeah, not very good overall. Anyway, so here we got this celestial equator, and it shows on this map the orbital direction, and then the south celestial pole, and the different axis tilts of the Earth. And then I sort of noticed where they all meet in the center, except for the orbital direction, is it's sort of like pinpointed a location on the map. And if anyone hasn't seen Perry Reese's maps before, he was one of the very first like ancient old map makers. Excuse me. And boy, if anyone wants to read his history, he was quite the character. I think he even lived to be like 80 or 90 or something, like really old for the olden days. And not only was he not like a decrepit old man, he was still actively out on the sea. Like he learned about all this map making because he grew up on a ship. I think Perry Reese is actually more of a term, like an occupation rather than his real name. Something to do with shipping and navigating. And I think he was also part of the Ottoman Empire. I could be wrong about that. Or I think what it was, yeah. Well, anyways, we'll cover more about Perry Reese. So anyways, once you start to notice this pattern, I was like, wait a minute, I've seen this before because I've recreated Perry Reese maps onto Google Earth Pro. And it's almost this exact same pattern. So I was like, all right, let's bring that up on the screen next so we can see that. Let's see, Google Earth. I'll have to boot that quick. All right, so while Google Earth is booting, I'll just give a quick summary of how I got into map making. is I had a severe concussion. I think, was it back in 2017? No, 2018. And I was doing years of rehab to try to get my everything back to normal again. And part of the rehab process, I actually started to work on recreating Perry Reese maps. Who knows why? I think it was just the thing. Oh yeah, it was Julie Ryder. She was sharing some information about how ancient sites in Montana tend to create a line that goes across the continent. So after I found out about that line, I took lines from other movies that researchers had found, and they found another one called, what is it, the Great Line? Let's see if I got it here. Modern gravity wells, ancient maps. There it is. Let's go yellow, blue. Yeah, I got this map color coded. Ah, here it is, yellow. The God of War line. I think, what color was it? Second yellow layer, circles. No, it's not the red layer. Now what I did is I color coded the map to make it a little bit easier to discover. Oh, there we are. So that's the one line. Let's get rid of that other yellow line. It's confusing. It's September 11th line. We'll cover that September 11th line maybe today. Yeah, I guess we will, but a little bit later. So anyways, this is the Montana line that Julie was talking about, and other researchers noticed it as well, that there's basically a line that connects ancient sites. Let's bring up the slide that shows which ones it connects. I think I got it in my gravity well folder. No, not to spoil it, but I also think the Perry Reese's maps and these ancient lines and this celestial equator stuff all connects to a lost gravity technology. So if I refer to gravity wells, then you know what the hell I'm talking about. Ah, there it is. All right, so let's summarize. Where's the image with Julie Ryder's line? Yeah, she's got websites and stuff too. If you want to check her work out, I highly recommend it. I know it's a little bit weird for some people because she believes that some of the stone sites that are actually buried cities under the ground and stuff. Could be. I know so very little about it. I don't even really have a say on what it could or isn't. All right, so here, the Cambodia, you've got these different ancient sites that are connecting on this line. And on this map, it shows it as a straight line across. But if you put it on a globe, obviously it's going to be a different shape. So what we have here in purple, going from this direction, is Julie Ryder's line. And then this other line that goes through here on this direction comes from the movie Revelations of the Pyramids. Crap, I really should have had it ready. Now I've got it on my shelf so I can show people that I actually support the work of this guy. I know it's a controversial work. Where is it? Because a lot of people make fun of it. They're like, oh, you could just draw lines anywhere and it'll connect eventually. So here it is, Revelations of the Pyramids. I had to get this DVD actually all the way from England. Because apparently for some reason you can't get English copies, and well, American copies. So sadly, oh yeah, I can play this on a normal DVD player, but it has to be set up to play PAL format. So anyways, here's the video. It's called Revelations of the Pyramid. Highly recommend this video. It's all about what I'm talking about when it comes to these ancient maps and different patterns. So yeah, basically this DVD movie presentation, the host says that they got information passed on to them that they can't reveal the source, but it's very wild. So anyways, this purple line, well, we'll cover it in a second. Yeah, let's cover it right now. Oh yeah, and that's what I was going to show, why there's two different line patterns, like the viewer asked before. The celestial equator line is always going to be moving, right, because of the Polaris star and everything. So today's map of how the whole pattern lines up is slightly shifted from how it was just in the past. So I always wondered, like, why is that shift there? Why doesn't it line up exactly on top of each other? And then that's what the viewer pointed out, is because the stars themselves are changing. So as time goes on, the way this map lines up is going to be slightly different. I believe. It could be I'm way off on that. Alright, so I could be way off on a lot of this, but I figure I'll present it as a theory, go from there. All right, so that's Julie Ryder's line. Oh, let's remove the weather for now. We'll come and check that out a bit later. I know a lot of people are into the weather now because of the big storms. Even Jupiter is having like a massive heat wave right now, and people are trying to figure out what the heck caused Jupiter to boil hotter than Venus. I don't think it's carbon pollution. Hey, D. Reed's here. How's it going, man? Surprised none of those lines don't go through Mexico. Yeah, we'll get to that. Remember how we said that the gods wanted the sacrifices to occur on specific locations? So we'll get into why that is very shortly. Or maybe we'll do it right now, since the viewer brought it up. All right, so if anyone hasn't heard about this line, I actually stumbled across it when I had Art Olivier on the show. We were talking about it as the September 11th ley line, but what I didn't realize is it's actually a larger ley line that goes around the entire planet, and it's also called St. Michael's Arch. Oh crap, I wonder if I have that on here. I should show it. I don't want to get too skip far ahead. We'll come back to that in a second. All right, so let's go to the St. Michael's line, and how it connects to Mexico. Oh God, man. All right, so this line is like another part of the pattern, and it happens to be where all the September 11th line or attacks also took place. Well, not all of them, but majority of them. Like here we have the spot of the Boston airport where the plane was hijacked. And then if you go down the line a bit further, it goes right through the World Trade Center remains where the towers used to be. It also goes through the Pentagon directly. And then once you follow it all the way down, it comes into Mexico, like the viewer was pointing out. And it turns out that this line of sacrifice just so happens to be the spot where the god of war instructed Tenochtitlan, the biggest or best city in the world, to be built. Because the gods always wanted cities to be on those sacrifice lines. Why? Because I think they're collecting energy somehow from it, right? I don't know that energy theories, we'll get into more about that. So yeah, if you extend this sacrifice line, it goes through other places. There's this giant sinkhole that's like really impressive visually, but no one's ever heard of it. There's the Mecca Cube where the birth of Muhammad took place. Oh, Mount Hermon, where the fallen angels came to earth. Mount Olympus, where the gods lived. So we'll come right back to that one in a second. Well, we won't finish the slide yet because I just thought of something. Remember the cover image that we had going? Where is it? For today's show, where was it? I think I got it here. Yeah, the cover image, there it is. So we see here that the gods and that sacrifice tradition, it was because you wanted to communicate with the gods, right? And a lot of the legends talked about how this energy on this sacrifice line was actually not only allowing the gods to communicate with us, but also to travel to the earth. So I don't know, like a lot of researchers, I shouldn't say a lot, I think who was it, Wayne Herschel or what's that Martin guy's name? They often refer to the ancient gods as like coming on spaceships, but I don't believe that really advanced technology would still be using nuts and bolts spacecraft. Because you think about how technology progresses. Like 100 years ago or whatever it is, we had the Wright brothers. Then we evolved like 100 years later to space shuttles. And then if you went like 1,000 years from now, we're probably not going to be using space shuttles or planes or anything. We're going to have a new technology. And then what happens when you go like 1,000,000 years in the future? Obviously, they've moved beyond nuts and bolts planes. They've moved beyond rocket ships. And now they're getting to the point where their bodies are the actual spaceships, right? They can transform themselves into energy and just go through portals and wormholes and all that sort of thing. So I could be way off, obviously, on that one, but I just find it hard to believe that these ancient gods still use like ancient or archaic nuts and bolts craft. I think if anything, they're using these gravity wells to travel. So I know that's a little bit of a wild theory, but all right, well, check. No, we don't have any more comments on Adept Initiates. And I'll check YouTube, see how we're doing for comments there. Oh yeah, so the viewer was asking about the lines going through Mexico. So yeah, let's cover the rest of that slide. Thank you, viewers. You're the ones helping keep me on track here. If it wasn't for the viewers, I swear, a lot of times my mind would just wander to the point where I wouldn't get anything accomplished. Right, so there we go. So not only was Mount Hermon where the angels came to earth, that's like the evidence, right? Like this line of sacrifice is literally where the gods used it to get to the earth. It even says that, like, with this, right? It's pretty, I shouldn't say obvious, but so that's where the fallen angels came. Mount Olympus is also on this line, and that's where the gods lived. Right? And then you have Stonehenge, River Vale, the trade centers. Oh, and that was the other thing that Mike Tyson, I don't know if anyone's ever watched his podcast, he was trying to figure out why the hell Brownsville, it's like this really rough ghetto in, I think, New York. He was wondering why all the best boxers from the whole world came from like the same block that he lived on. He's like, why is this happening? He's like, there's ghettos all over America where people could become great boxers. Why are they all coming from here? And he couldn't put his finger on it. He's like, why? So just in case Mike Tyson happens to be watching, that'd be sweet. But anyways, yeah, Brownsville happens to be on the line. So this is where like a lot of powerful warriors, the god of war, they tend to be like born there. So we'll get on to the Cherokee warriors. We're also from there. And it's also the source, like you can probably tell on the slide next to me. It's also connected to volcanoes, some of the biggest volcanoes. So if anyone hasn't heard from the olden days, remember the sacrifice tradition where they were throwing the beautiful women or warriors into volcanoes? Why was that? Now we know. There wasn't no coincidence that they were throwing them into volcanoes. They could have threw them off the edge of cliffs, they could have threw them into the ocean, but it was like specifically they're throwing them into volcanoes on certain ley lines, right? So anyways, we'll get on to the other half here. It says that, oh yeah, if anyone else is from Bulgaria, they probably heard of St. Ivan, the famous Rila monastery. I know someone who does great tours there. That's where it also falls on the line. The birth of Hitler, we won't talk about that too much, and Miss USA's death. If anyone didn't hear, what was it, last year or the year that she died, happened to be on the Chinese calendar, the year of sacrifice. So it's like, isn't it weird that Miss USA died on the last day of the year of sacrifice and she jumped from the Orion Tower, literally the name of the sacrifice ritual. So God bless her family and all the tragedy they were having to go through. Like, God, that'd be terrible. But even those like Mexico sacrifices with the women being thrown into the volcano, it didn't stop. People are still doing it. And arguably she like actually jumped, so no one pushed her, I think, as far as the investigation goes. But it makes you wonder, right? Like, I'm not saying someone killed her, but maybe the universe itself was just gearing towards that to happen. Sort of like Final Destination. It was destiny. So we got the Pentagon. So anyways, when I was recreating these ley line maps of Perry Reese, I happened to notice that the God of War line overlaps the biggest volcanoes on Mars, connects all three of them. So I was like, whoa, that's really weird. That's when I started to realize this volcano and the God of War sacrifice line are extremely connected, even on other planets, for God's sakes. So I don't know if we were ever to look and we find ancient civilization remains on Mars, which obviously is a far out theory. But if I had to guess, near these volcanoes, we should find some evidence of sacrifice rituals. Or there was no humans there ever, and that's just, we'll never find. But all right, so we covered that. Let's go to the gravity well map now. Let's get this whole map on the screen so people can look at it, and then from there I'll try to find the lines that I'm looking for. And we won't put the full map on yet. Let's just go with the yellow layer. So on Perry Reese's maps, let's show an image of that. Where do we got Perry Reese's maps? Oh yeah, God bless her family and friends. So there was Miss USA, the one who sadly died on the Orion sacrifice day from the Orion Tower. Jesus. All right, so where was it? Got distracted by her. Oh yeah, we gotta find the line pattern. Where is it? Oh yeah, Perry Reese. Perry Reese. See if I have his stuff here. Should have it in this folder. Ah, here it is. So there's the ancient Perry Reese map, and I actually got a copy of his book as well. It's a giant, like freaking thick textbook that cost as much as a PS5. I added it to my collection. I haven't actually had a time to read the whole thing, but it did come with a giant map version of Perry Reese's map. So I literally got it on the wall beside me so I can look up at it while I'm working on these maps. And yeah, people were thinking like that he picked arbitrary locations to put these orbs. But when you look at some of the locations, when you map them onto Google, look how it maps out the continents. So you see here in Africa, how one of the biggest orbs is like the land bending around it. Then we get to these lines, and they're all mapping the edges of the continents and their shapes. Like even there, right? Boom, boom, boom. And then you come to here, and you start to see Australia. Now this is a very unique gravity well field that I believe is affecting animal mutations and plant mutations. So here's where we get the idea that different gravity well technologies, or these ancient ley line maps created from the celestial equator, actually hold the keys to how our planet works. Like how animals evolve, why they evolve, what kind of species they turn into, and why. So yeah, you can see here that there's more spots. Usually what happens is when you get a major gravity well, the land will bend around it. So let's go to the blue layer actually for South America. We'll turn off the yellow. So each layer does seem to have a different look to it. But you can start to see, some of these lines are literally cutting the shapes of the continents, right? And now, who is it? Physicists have often argued that gravity is not a force because you cannot physically observe or test for the interaction of particles. But here we can see that if gravity was a force, these lines could be representing it. And now that we see that they're actually affecting the shape of the continents, that's the proof that proves that it is a force. You have the exchange of electrons. All right, so there's some of the more maps. All right, so what else did I want to show with the maps? Okay, we'll give a little bit more of a brief coverage of the maps just so people get a really good idea of what I'm talking about here. Yellow, there it is. Now, if you look at the North Pole, you can see that the map is actually outlining the Bering Strait very accurately, except for on this right side, right? Like, why is the Bering Strait not also connecting on the other side? And then I dug into the archives of like actual scientific documentation about why they think that is. And it turns out in the past, they believe it actually did connect there. So something changed the planet from used to looking like this to today's planet, where it's all smashed up and moved. And then that's when I realized that this path here along this is actually, where is it? See if we got the figure 8 pattern. It's the pattern where the pole is wandering. Now there's different types of pole wanderings. There's the magnetic north, the real north, and all these different types of poles. So I get those confused, but whatever one it is, that's basically the pattern that it's taking. So when the pole got smashed, it was because, I believe, that all of a sudden, like, that's the wandering pattern. And when the gravity well wanders, it ends up smashing the land around it. So that's one of the main theories for that. All right, so I think we covered everything I want to do about the maps, other than, oh yeah, let's do the really good line. Montana line. Oh, here it is, the mega line. Now this one's one of my favorites. This is the one from the Revelations of the Pyramids that we were talking about earlier. I gotta move that. So let's check out the locations that this goes to. So Let's see, do I got the original? Now what I noticed is that the line from this movie and the actual ley line pattern is slightly different, but not by much. Very slightly. So anyways, we got here, if anyone's heard of this island before, will it tell us? Rapa Nui, or betterly known as Easter Island, right? So they noticed in Revelation of Pyramids that the line had an intersection point at Easter Island, and arguably this line is 100 kilometers wide. So that's one of the reasons why it doesn't fall exactly on it. Yeah, that's another good question that D. Reed talks about, this idea of the mega continent where everything connects. I think to a certain degree it kind of disproves it, because even a basic pottery class, if anyone's taken pottery, you have to like sit near a wheel and the wheel spins, and unless you keep the clay on that wheel like uniform, it'll fall and wobble and just smash into pieces because it's spinning at a really high rate. So if you take the earth and you spin it really fast, literally the land has to take a uniform shape or it would just smash to pieces, right? Because it's like spinning so fast. So that's why I think you end up with like a pattern like that, like the original. Or is it from the old records? Yeah, the old, oh, there it is. Yeah, so that's why I think it's like, man, it actually changed it. Oh yeah, the disproved continent. Let me get it. Thank God we got the viewers to help keep me on track. You can tell my mind wanders pretty easily. So that's not the slide I was looking for. Here it is. It turns out that a very long time ago, I don't know how many years ago, but what also created this weird wobble, I don't know if anyone's ever noticed this before when you look at the globe, but Australia and Antarctica used to be merged together and were a giant South Pole. And something happened where all of a sudden the two continents split in half. Like this is literally the crack of the earth. Let's put the earth's crack here. Sorry, that sounds terrible. Crack. All right, let's see. Now I'm lucky that with Google Earth Pro, they allow you to see a lot of things that you normally wouldn't on maps. So here we got the actual line that shows where the Earth's crust split, and the two continents used to be joined but pulled apart. So ever since the South Pole broke in half, what I believe happened is the pole wanders back and forth from one side to the other, and that's actually our ice age cycle. So not only is it wandering back and forth like a figure 8 at the bottom, or maybe it doesn't. We'd have to check. Maybe it's just the top that wanders, but yeah, so we got the wandering at the top and then the wandering at the bottom. And if, yeah, most people have probably realized at this point, this is the ice age cycle. I didn't even know this. I don't know if anyone else knows. People have heard that Antarctica actually is covered in tropical plants underneath the ice, like fossils of like Paradise Tropical City, because Antarctica used to be boiling hot, like a tropic, similar to what Australia is now. But guess what's also popular or not well known with Australia's past? Australia got hit hard by the Ice Age. Like there's literally still giant glaciers that haven't even melted yet. So yeah, like this idea that Australia was actually buried under ice isn't really a far out theory. The academics admit it, that Australia used to be the pole that was cold. And that's why New Zealand, well, arguably has a very old population, but I don't believe that people could have survived the ice age there, right? Like if you had miles of thick ice, were people still living on New Zealand? And who knows how old the ice age really is, right? We always estimate it at 10,000 years, but that's still an estimate, right? So I don't know, if I was in Australia, I probably wouldn't be that worried that it's going to get cold again soon, only if the next ice age begins. I don't know, man, if I was living in Australia, I'd be so paranoid that the government isn't trying to find ways to warm it so that when the ice age comes back, like everyone doesn't have to move from Australia to Antarctica. Jesus. So anyways, these plate crust lines, guess what they also happen to represent? We'll take off this one for now. If people have seen my other videos, you already know, but sorry, I won't ruin the surprise until we get to it. All right, so there's the God of War line. So this God of War line, where all the sacrifices and stuff are taking place, look at what it's going over. It's literally the major crack of the planet. That's the biggest crack that splits the entire planet in half. See, it sort of wanders off a little bit, but relatively, that is the major crack line. Now, which one is this? Oh, yeah, this is the one. No, I shouldn't make fun of it, but in Mexico, they have the Avenue of the Dead. I think that's what it's called. Let me check. I always forget the name of it. That's not it. Oh, yeah, there it is. So, just like the God of War line wasn't the only crack that split the Earth in half, there actually happened to be a second one. Sort of like how this Earth is actually split into four, not just in half. So the other crack line just also happens to be the huge freaking runway at this pyramid complex. I wish I had a picture from the top of this pyramid so you could see. It's like a giant like hallway that just goes along with this line. So this line is like the second line of sacrifice, where the gods wanted things to be sacrificed so that they could get the energy they required to travel back and forth from the seventh heaven of the immortals. So if you keep following it, obviously it goes through some volcanoes. But guess what else is on this line? This is what kind of really freaks you out to what's happening today. Everyone's heard about this. Let me spin the globe so we can see it better. I know when I have the globe upside down, it confuses the heck out of people. I'm kind of used to seeing the globe upside down because I've studied maps for like, I guess since 2018, every day, like 80 hours a week. So I'm a little bit more used to it. So basically this old blue line is basically the border of where a lot of conflicts are happening in the world. You can see it's very close to the borderline that's separating Russia and Ukraine. Oh yeah, that's what I was going to show everyone too. You know the regular God of War line? Look where it goes through when it comes to battle areas. Like, people say this God of War line is sacrifice and it's causing all these wars. Look where it goes through. It goes through... Come on, spin it. Oh, that's not the right line. Why is the full line not there? Oh, here it is, the God of War line. Alright, so the God of War line, after it goes through, like, arguably you could say the border between France and other countries is always going to be a spot of a lot of wars. You know how France has like a massive history of wars and colonizing. Italy, another place that had a crap load of wars. Now, arguably anywhere on the planet could have a lot of wars, but we'll start to see some really big ones. Then you got the wars happening in Israel and Jerusalem. Then you got the different wars in Yemen. Yemen is really well known for having like constant warfare. Yeah, so I think we had one. Oh yeah, and this one also goes through Afghanistan. If anyone hasn't heard, holy crap, is there a nightmare going on in Afghanistan? Like, if you go into Google and you type in lithium mines and try to find out where's the biggest lithium mines, because everyone in the globe is being shifted over, like forced to drive electric cars. California is being forced, Canada's being forced, and really odd in Canada too, because they don't even work here. Because our winters are so cold, everyone's electric cars just die as soon as it gets really cold. And then most people get rid of their electric cars because, like, crap, I'm not going to get a new battery every year. Those batteries cost more than the car itself. So anyways, the lithium mines to produce all the batteries that we need for this new modern era of electric, all of it is in Afghanistan. Now, arguably, they'll say there's other lithium mines like in South America or Australia, but they're so tiny in comparison. Like the other mines, they couldn't even produce like 1% of the lithium we need. It's like 99% of the lithium we need is all coming from Afghanistan. So if anyone hasn't heard, Biden and Trump both actually worked together to get all the troops out of Afghanistan to create a huge vacuum and instability. Like everyone probably heard on the news, all those terrible wars. And guess who was moving in after the states left? Dun, dun, dun. China. China realized that Afghanistan is the lithium spot, and China is pushing for the electric movement. Why? Because they moved in and now they control all the lithium mines in Afghanistan. So I'm not trying to say that Trump and Biden are helping China behind the scenes, but that is how it played out, right? So I think they said the Afghanistan lithium mines have like over $1 trillion worth of lithium or more. And China is the one coming in to build all the infrastructure to take it all and corner the market. So if people don't know, why does China even care about cornering the market? When it comes to world wars, guess what world wars end up usually ending by? Fuel. Whoever runs out of fuel loses the war. That's actually how Germany lost World War II. Or it could have been World War I. I'm not the expert on the world wars, but anyways, I know that Germany's fuel supplies got so low that they had to convert all their gas vehicles to run on wood. And they managed to do it. It's possible, but it's not feasible long term, right? Because you can't just keep burning trees or you'd run out, right? So that's what's happening now is we see that Russia actually sent a whole ton of money to the Green Party in the USA to shut down all the pipelines. Why? Because they're trying to corner the market for fuel so they can win the war. And so it's not just like oil that's been cornered by Russia. Russia and China have teamed up. So now they've cornered the oil and natural gas supply and the lithium supply. So if we wanted to use electricity or gas, we have to go through them. Hence, they've won the war. So that's why I was saying that the wars that happen on these lines, that's a big one. This is the one that's probably going to be the biggest war that we've ever seen. And if anyone's from Afghanistan, Pakistan, they know that there's been a history of wars here for a long time, right? Like, even in the olden days, cultures used to come here to try to get all the gold, copper, all the different minerals because of the mountains. And because it's the crack of the earth, right? The crack of the earth ends up creating a lot of great minerals. All right, so I think we covered enough for that line and the different wars. We covered would it disprove the continents being all connected at one time? I think some of them were, like the South Pole was connected. Oh, let's look at another way the planets used to connect, or continents. This is one of my favorite ones. Let's go First Nations history. Yeah, big shout out to the First Nations people again, too. If it wasn't for the oral traditions, I swear we wouldn't have gotten any of this information. The problem with the difference between like oral traditions, I've noticed, and written records usually always get changed. Even if it's in a freaking tablet carved in a wall, someone will come by with a chisel and change it. Or if it's written word, someone will just come out with a new edition. And then, once the new edition's out, you lose all the previous information. But First Nations oral tradition is actually far superior in the fact that they can't get everything changed at once. There isn't like just one edition and everyone's going to all of a sudden change how they tell the story. All right, so here we go. This is actually how the continents used to connect. I know as funny as it sounds, but we got Turtle Island and it used to be a giant elephant. And it's two different things, like cultures like Hindu and Chinese, where we get to the winged disc culture and the celestial equator. The history of the indigenous people of the Americas, they all talk about like a turtle and an elephant. So that's most of these images are from Wikipedia. And I thought it was actually funny, well, kind of funny, is if you look at the groin area of the elephant, it's like a procreative organ, right? That's where people are always like, new offspring come from. Look at human population. Almost all of the people in the world are centered around the elephant's groin. So I don't know if that's just a coincidence. Kind of funny, right? But so yeah, that's another way that the continents used to connect. And I know that's so funny too, because people are like, oh, this continent is supposed to connect to Africa over here. But if you take South America and like bend it down around, it still fits with that going over. And the mountain chains that are here and here connect. It's the same type of mountain range. All right, so there we covered, oh yeah, and this is a little bit more where we talked about the anthropomorphic ideas of like the ancients being like half animals and half people. It's because the animal gods are actually very prevalent. I know a lot of people make fun of the idea of animal gods, but I don't. I think it's very serious. All right, so what else did we, oh yeah, we should show it. This is actually one of the most sad parts I've seen too. Even sadder than sacrifice. Well, that was the First Nations history I forgot to mention. We'll close that one, close that one. It's kind of a shame. My computer isn't working the greatest lately. I'm going to have to format it because everything's not working. Sound's not working, images aren't working, video links aren't working. Probably just me, but oh well. All right, let's open that folder, see if we can find that image we were just looking at. So you see how the elephant, you can sort of make out where his eye would be on his head? Guess what we have there? Oh man, this makes me sad. All right, let's show everyone. I can't just get overwhelmed with sadness here. No. I know like animal sacrifice is basically a big part of human tradition. Like we can't even live without the sacrifice of animals, but still it makes me sad. All right, so we'll add in the blue layer and the yellow layer. Let's remove some of the other lines. Maybe it's the blue. It is the blue. So if you take the blue layer and you go to the pinpoint where the gravity well is, guess what's there? It's the start of the Amazon River. So if people haven't heard the ancient traditions, they talk about how the animal, like the head that was beheaded, the story goes that the natives were told to behead a giant and tie its tail to Turtle Island. So that's how the continent shifted from one side to the other. They tied the elephant's head to the turtle's tail. And they said that the elephant, when it died, it got its head cut off here, and that's why the Mediterranean is flowing, warm water. They said it's to represent the blood of the elephant coming out of where its neck is, and it's still flowing to this day. So I was thinking, isn't that weird that blood could still be flowing? What about tears? So you go over to South America, and lo and behold, the gravity well point is right at the elephant's eye, and you see the tears represented by the Amazon River. So I talked to a friend of mine in Argentina. He's like, yeah, that's actually the direction the Amazon flows. It flows down from there into the ocean. So it's literally all these years later, after the continent split, that the elephant's tears are still flowing down its face. Super sad. I know elephants actually became my favorite animal after I found out this history. Because man, what a sacrifice they did. So yeah, just another look at the elephant and its eye and its tears. This is where we start to get more into how the celestial equator actually connects to the animal gods. Like, look at this, right? Like, they're shaping the planet with the celestial equator, and it connects to how the animal's head and everything is shaped. Isn't it weird, too, if you look at the end of where this ends, like if the water was just a little bit more shallow and this was still land exposed, it would look exactly like the trunk of the elephant. You can even see the spot where it picks stuff up. Oh God, poor elephant, man. Thank you for your sacrifice. Alright, so let's not get on too much more sad stuff. Let's get on to some better stuff about how the celestial equator and all this connects. Alright, so we looked at Julie Ryder's line, and where was that one? The image is across, and we start getting these patterns, and if you compare it to the other map, where is it? There it is. So yeah, if you compare it to the other map, that's the wrong one. No, that one isn't it either. Oh, if anyone wants to see the Rila Monastery, that's the one where St. Ivan is on the sacrifice line. Really super nice monastery. Here was the tradition of the Norse, like geometry, the sacred tree. And you can actually find that same pattern in the gravity wells in between the continents. Oh yeah, and if we should show some people more evidence that these gravity wells are actually legit, is we'll go to the impact craters. Here it is, impact crater database. And we'll put up the yellow lines. There it is. So it just so happens that one of the biggest craters, it's not actually a meteor crater. If you click on it, it tells you that they thought it was a meteor before, but now they've rejected that idea. So they're still trying to figure out what created this giant crater here. And it just so happens to be the biggest gravity well point. So I always thought that was kind of interesting. If you wanted to go into actual evidence to show it, that there is a gravity well there. All right, so we'll move that and we'll go to the blue layer. You know, a big shout out to Perry Reese's memory too. I still can't believe how much information he gave us on his maps, and it could be the very foundation of future technologies, even for space travel. Yeah, so if you look at where these lines are crossing and breaking, like the continents, it actually matches the same type of geometry, right? Like it's splitting right there. Where's another good one? Oh yeah, this one goes right through the gravity well point there. Goes along that line. Another point where it just goes right on the gravity well. It even like crisscrosses right with it. So we're starting to see that these gravity well lines are really connected to the different mountain ranges, the cracks in the earth crust, the volcanoes. It's pretty impressive. Oh yeah, that one too. Now this reminds me when I was a kid and I got my first globe. I always asked my dad, like we had a globe that was topographical so you could feel the surface and where it was higher and lower. I was like, why is there a giant ridge going off the ocean near the Equator? And he's like, oh, it's just a coincidence that it's on the equator. But now we can see it's not a coincidence on the equator because other places have the same feature. Like in India, if you go south of it, you can see that it's lining up with that line too. And the whole reason that it's shifted slightly, I think, is because the celestial equator shifts over time. Which makes me wonder, as the celestial equator keeps shifting, is that the force that's causing our continents to continue moving in different directions? Could be. All right, so we covered that stuff with the gravity wells. I'll look at some more slides and see if there's anything I forgot. Everything I wanted to cover today was the Sumerian stuff, how it connects to all the Freemasonry. That's what I was going to say too. If we start getting this technology to the point where we're harnessing gravity wells, yeah, let's bring up that slide. I just thought of a good one. The gravity wells. There it is. Oh, that's not it. Gravity well summary, there it is. So you can see that Freemasons were using this type of celestial equator knowledge, not just like the ancient people, but Like, look at, like, if you wanted to build a pyramid in Mexico with that line and shadow pattern, you need to know where this gravity well pattern line goes. And why? Because a lot of these lines are matching up with the stars. Yeah, so there it is. It even looks like the same pattern, right? Like the little jagged sort of triangle features. It's some pretty amazing technology. Now, sorry if I went all over the place. I've never really done this presentation before, and you can see there's a lot to it, so I was trying to just get an idea of which format would work best. So sorry for everyone if I sort of just kind of wander all over the place with this. Oh yeah, we'll show the mountain range connecting. Yeah, so it does show like the different mountain ranges and how they used to connect. It's not like a wild theory. There's actually a lot of academic evidence to support the idea. Now, we won't get too much more into the gravity wells because today I want to focus more on just what we were talking about in the main show topic. Where is it again? Yeah, I really wish I could close some of these images, but it won't allow me right now. Computer's messed. Yeah, so here we have like the ancient Sumerian tablets showing us the wheels within wheels, the different gravity wells, and how the celestial equators are all connected to each other, and how it's such an important technology because it's literally the story of how our souls travel. Our souls travel across from the alpha to the omega. Yes, we can put that slide back on. Ah, there it is. All right, so there it is. Yeah, so if anyone thinks that a lot of ancient religions aren't really connected to each other, just try to remember that all of the different religions are all talking about the same ritual. They're talking about the Orion guy and how he shows the journey to get from, what is it, the seventh heaven, the Pleiades, all the way to Canis Major or Minor, the Anubis. All right, so we covered that. And yeah, that's the one reason everyone's trying to think that all the different cultures communicated with each other in the past. That could be the case. But I think also, since we have the gods literally having the same ritual in the sky for everyone to see, and if the shamans all got the information from the gods about how it works, how people are supposed to make it to heaven, what you have to do in order to free yourself from sin. And we got so many different cultures that were all into it. Oh yeah, even our letters and our alphabet are literally based upon this ancient ritual. So it's weird, eh? Like when it comes to figuring out mankind's origins on the planet, we don't even have to go any farther to solve it than the legend of our alphabet is based on. Isn't that weird, huh? Yeah, there's a good depiction. The Pleiades 7, the Taurus, the Sacrifice, the Orion's Belt. Oh yeah, let's show the Anubis. Almost forgot. So yeah, if anyone hasn't heard about Anubis and how he's like big in Egypt, well, it's not just Egypt he's big in. He's also big in South America. They give him a different name. Well, it's the same deal. It's like a black god that guides people in the afterlife. And I kind of got into it because of the Anubis amulet. I didn't even know that was a video. I thought it was an image. Ah, here it is. Yeah, so we're starting to get to see Anubis and how he's very connected, like the same type of deity god on almost every corner of the globe. Now, my cousin actually ended up drawing an Anubis picture, if anyone wants to check it out. I think it's on YouTube. I think Next NEXT has a version posted on his YouTube too, because he was working with her at one point. Alright, let's see. So we covered Anubis. Oh yeah, that Anubis. There was one more image in Anubis I wanted to show you for cross-culture stuff. There it is. Now, where is Anubis? Anubis. Oh, I think it was the original. Let's go back to that. Now, I've got two trips to the museum in folders, and I always get the two mixed up. But here it is, wrong. And Anubis, there he is. So even, oh yeah, scarab collection. I think that is what it's called. So the Phoenician scarabs, they even showed Anubis. So it wasn't like Anubis was just an Egyptian thing. He's literally like anyone who could see the stars and had shamans, they knew about the Anubis. They all have different names for him in some cases, but yeah, the same black god dog that's in the sky that guides people in the afterlife. Not to get too personal, but after my uncle died, I was looking after him for a few years. I always thought that I was going to have some sort of dream about Jesus or whatever, but it turned out when he died, I actually had a weird dream where he came to say goodbye the night before he died, and he was with Anubis. So I was like, whoa, that was so weird. And how I knew that he was with Anubis is Anubis, when I encounter him in dreams, he's like a horrible demonic energy, like enough to like just shed shivers down your spine. Here it is, Anubis from Obsidian. But yeah, I'm not really a big doubter anymore. Like I used to be very skeptical about the afterlife and if it is just myth and fantasy and all that, but after putting together some of this research, having those dreams, encountering Anubis, it's really changed my outlook in life big time. Yeah, I don't think we have too much time to get into the wheels within wheels. Let's see how much time we've been doing this broadcast. Yeah, we're almost at the 2-hour mark. No, so I appreciate everyone from watching or for watching. Oh yeah, let's give a shout out to, oh, we can't. I was just about to leave to a different page. Oh, there it is. Oh, it's just my boss calling me for work. Yeah, I can work tomorrow. Sweet. No, I don't have a big fancy job or anything. I actually usually just shovel ditches like Tesla did all day. But yeah, it helps keep you in shape too, right? So there we go. Now, if anyone wants to help out my research, I do got links in the chat or description below. Different things like Patreon and all that jazz. But if you want to help out too, you can also check out the Adept Initiate stuff and make sure to check out what Next is working on. I think he's still living in Egypt these days, and we're supposed to do a show together. I'm hoping that this will be a good test to show that we actually can do live streams over Facebook. I hope so. Yeah, and we can do the cross posting. I got this going on YouTube and Facebook at the same time. All right, so we answered all the questions on Adept Initiates page. Thanks again, Next, and Karina for letting us share the stuff. Sorry that there's a little bit of rude comments on there, but maybe it just happened to be a translation error. I don't think he was trying to be mean. Who knows? Yeah, like I can't speak Spanish. When I translated it, maybe I just got it wrong. All right, so I don't know, like I guess, yeah, let's summarize. I know I'm terrible at summarizing when I do a presentation, so we'll try to summarize this the best I can. Yeah, we'll go on to the, let's put this with, where's my other favorite one? Ah, this one. So when people want to ask, like, what is this tablet meaning? There could be many different layers of meaning, but when it's showing wheels within wheels within wheels, I think it's referring to the celestial equator, especially once you have like all those star patterns that happen to line up with that red circle going around the Orion Man. And this circle going around a winged disc, I do believe that that is the secret meaning to Freemasonry. I know some Masons all have their own different theories about what it is, and I'm not trying to say my theory is the only theory. There's probably a lot of other good ones out there, so if anyone else has ideas what it is, please feel free to share. And that's what I was thinking too with like Da Vinci. When you learn to see how all things connect, you start to see how like this celestial equator pattern actually is part of a bigger circle pattern that makes up the Peri-Reis maps that actually shape our continents. It's like, it almost seems like the ancient mystery stuff is really giving us the lost technology that we'll be able to terraform planets. I really believe that that's the route we're going. I don't really think that the gods will allow us to reach that point. Maybe the the whole idea of like mankind civilization is just supposed to lead up to that, and then once we reach that, that's like the goal. Who knows, right? Anyone's guess what that really is all about. And let's bring up one more slide. We'll put the wing disc up there. See if I can find another wing disc symbol. Oh yeah, I know where I got a good one. Maybe we should give a little bit more about Freemasonry, because we kind of skipped a lot of that. Alright, so let's go to the last bit that connects this all to Freemasonry. If anyone hasn't noticed, the DC map, like, you know, the map of DC, people like to talk about it as like a pentagram or a star, but it actually makes up a larger line pattern that includes Albert Pike's grave or tomb inside their headquarters. And the Albert Pike statue, Kennedy Center, could be... when you think about it, how the Kennedy Center is part of it, wasn't Kennedy sacrificed as well? It's really sad, but... Alright, so that's that part. And the other part to the Freemasonry. Now, some people were arguing with me that Pike's tomb isn't still in this building, but from all the records I can find, it says that it is. So that's why I keep referring to it as being there. So here's the house of the temple, or like the giant place on that map we were just showing. And yeah, Albert Pike's grave is in here. You can see that it's a copy of the Achaemenid Empire, the guys that were really into the wing disc. So yeah, when you talk about the wing disc, I don't think any doubt, well, I shouldn't say any doubt, I'll probably have a new theory next year, but at the point right now, I'm pretty convinced that that wing disc symbol and the rings, I know I've considered it as a torque before, but yeah, these rings, I believe, is a representation of this. The celestial equator connecting to the sacrifice ritual that literally shapes our planet and is part of our religion, because this journey from here to here is literally the journey of a human soul, right? Like when you're starting here, well, that's what I was thinking. You start from heaven and work your way to Anubis, and then maybe he guides you back to the seventh heaven. I was just thinking about that. That's a little bit of a weird trajectory. So yeah, all the different star patterns that are in here all just happen to be the celestial equator. Alright, so I hope everyone liked the presentation. I know it was really hard to follow because, man, I've been studying this stuff for years and I'm still just scratching the surface of what it all means. And it's very confusing for me as well. So hopefully in the future I'll keep studying it and I'll be able to make it a little bit more clarified that what each thing is. I think that's just about it that we want to wrap up. I want to get it under 2 hours, so we got 10 minutes. Yeah, let's wrap it up now. Alright, so thanks everyone for helping out with the comments and the questions in the chat. I think I did leave out quite a few things as well, but hey, maybe we'll do it in a future presentation. We'll try to make it a little bit more proper with editing and an actual video, but who knows. Oh yeah, and we'll just give some more of my sources. Like, thanks again to the Builders of the Pyramid video, the Albert Pike, well I guess he's passed on now, but yeah, the Freemasons with their work on the celestial equator. Really appreciate that. What other sources? Oh yeah, all the Wikipedia pages. And let's see. Yeah, and thanks to all the First Nations people for sharing their traditions. I know like one of the customs with First Nations people is to exchange information as currency. So if anyone wants to help them out by buying some sort of arts and crafts or supporting their culture in any ways, really appreciate that, because that's really where the money should go to, if anywhere. Yeah, because it is their currency after all, right? And I don't think without this red circle pattern that I would have ever realized that it was the celestial equator. Because yeah, without that, I kept thinking it was other things. Oh yeah, and big shout out to the Ottoman Empire and Piri Reis for all their contributions to helping build gravity well maps. And we'll give a full look at the gravity well map with the red layer from a distance. If anyone's good at drawing circles on Google Earth Pro, for God's sakes, please message me. I'm like the worst artist ever, and I struggled so badly trying to draw this whole thing by hand. as you can imagine, that's like a lot of lines, right? And there's a whole nother layer that I'm supposed to finish drawing, but it's so complicated, right? Like you can look at that pattern. Like once you start drawing that by hand, it's a nightmare, like literally a nightmare. So yeah, if anyone's able to be good at drawing and wants to actually help finish this correctly, a lot of these red lines aren't actually lining up where they're supposed to, because my math and ability to draw on a globe is amateur at best. So yeah, I really appreciate it. If anyone, like even if you need money to do it, just let me know your price and I'll try to get the money to you so we can get this project completed. I know for me it is kind of my life's work at this point, and my last name is almost the same as Perry Reese's, so, and my first name Leyland or Leyline. It's kind of a weird coincidence that how the universe plays out like that sometimes. But no, thanks everyone for watching and liking and sharing. Really appreciate it. And don't forget to, if you want to see next NEXT on one of these live streams on Adept Initiates, just give him a message and say, hey, let's do a live stream soon. Let's watch one or get one going. I know he's already agreed to do it, so this is really the first test to see, and I think it's not too bad so far. I'll watch the recording after and see how badly it turned out. Right, so I hope everyone has a good weekend, and hopefully everyone's able to recover from the damages from the storms, and God bless everyone's family and friends who lost loved ones. And Jesus, well, our earth is never an easy place to live, but it's never dull either, right? You got to give the Creator that. It's never a boring day. All right, so thanks everyone. Bye for now. I guess we'll just wrap it up. I was going to do all my Patreon and all that stuff, but I think I mentioned it enough. Everything's below in the chat. Appreciate it. Bye for now. See you later. Oh, let's give a shout out to the viewers. Almost forgot. Most important part. So we got Stephen Bear, DSZ, and who was it on the other pages? Oh yeah, we had D Reed. Thanks a lot, D Reed, for the awesome comments. Yeah, I can see them right there. So I know it was a long stream. Thanks for everyone who watched the whole thing. And yeah, if you got any comments, questions, can't wait to read them. See you later. Bye for now. Let's give the viewers applause too. Later. Now, just to clarify, we do not condone sacrifice. I believe that maybe Jesus was right. We don't need to sacrifice anymore. Let's hope. Alright, bye for now, everyone. See you later.